Okay, we're going to try this again. We're going to go over the election of 1876 and the Great Compromise of 1877. This election is one of the most important elections in U.S. history. It occurred about almost a decade after the U.S. Civil War ended, and it signifies the end of Reconstruction. Now, in the election of 1876, you have a very tight race against the Republican Rutherford B. Hayes and the Democrat Samuel Tilden. Now, I won't go into the background of the two candidates because I'm mainly focusing on the Great Compromise here. But how this thing goes is basically the electoral college is basically 50-50. At this time, you have, as the map says, 369 votes, and both get 184 votes in the electoral college, and it's 50-50. So uh, at this, whenever there's a tie, they gather Democrats, Republicans, and some independents to decide the vote. Now, here's where the Great Compromise comes in. Uh, with the Great Compromise, the Democratic Party kind of gives the election to Hayes on a few conditions. The first condition is that Reconstruction ends totally, meaning that in the states where Reconstruction and governments are still being held, like South Carolina, Louisiana, Florida, those areas, they want the Reconstruction governments totally gone throughout the entire South, and basically want the South back in uh, sovereign democratic hands. So it's kind of like a we'll scratch your back if you scratch our back. We'll give Hayes the election and he'll win just as long as we have the right to rule ourselves instead of radical Republicans ruling us like they have been for a decade. So there was this kind of back deal thing, and it played out. Hayes got the White House, and shortly thereafter, he was sworn in 1877. You see Democrats retake the South. You see them control state governments. They start to enact black codes more to stop African Americans from progressing upward. They create a poll tax. There's the literacy tax. There's the grandfather clause. If your grandfather was a slave, you cannot vote in the poll. Stuff like that. So, with this great compromise, there are some risks to it for both sides, not just for the South, but also for the North too. Um, Rutherford B. Hayes, up until his up until he left office, was known as his fraudulency, because people assumed, and of course he did do this, because people knew that he got the vote, got the presidency by doing this corrupt bargain with the South. You know, we'll give you back your states if you give me the presidency. Works out like that. So, over time, you do see sovereign states returning to their old democratic controlled self. And when I say democratic, you have to remember that the Democratic Party of the late 19th, early 20th century is not like the current Democratic Party that it is now. Uh, the Democratic Party at this time was very uh, white supremacist type. They were the party of the KKK during the Grant years. They wanted to stop African Americans from progressing in society. They They did sharecrops. They did, you know, other stuff to prevent African Americans from succeeding in the South. Um, so you basically have this. Um, it's basically like it is before the Civil War, except without slavery. You have basically every after the Compromise of 1877, you have every southern state go back into racist, democratically controlled hands, and it it doesn't look good for the blacks for another, you know, 60, 70 years. So, what are there are some, well, I should point out that there are some bad stuff for the Republicans as well. Like I said before, after um, the election of 1876, you have